before the homily, just a few words of thanks, and certainly I feel very blessed to be able to be here today for this wonderful 25th anniversary celebration. And we were talking about this before Mass. The founder really didn't have a place. The Pious Union wasn't so much a place as it was his person, because he kept moving all over the place. And so the Pious Union was here, then it was there, then it was back here. And so it's probably good to think about that. It is tied more to a person than to a place. We'll get into that a little later. I'm certainly very grateful to Father Fortunato for his wonderful service here to all of you, as well as to the wonderful Sister Margaret Mary and Sister Brenda for their wonderful service as well here. I appreciate it a great deal. And then the other sisters who have chosen to join us from Chicago, right? Okay. Who drove? Is she a good driver? Make sure we know who's driving back. And it's good to have Father Enzo here as well, working and leading us at St. Louis Center. You know, the fathers here, certainly, and the sisters as well, but what a great blessing they are to our Diocese of Lansing. I didn't realize when Father Enzo was telling me that there are not many sites in the United States where the community is currently serving. I just assumed there were a lot of places, but there aren't. There's a few. And so what a blessing it is, not only for the many people you're serving over at St. Louis Center and the many people here at the Pious Union, but really the whole Diocese of Lansing. We're blessed very much to have all of you here, so thank you very much. How about a nice round of applause? It's good to have Father David here as well. Thanks for being present. And Father Ronald, I presume you all know, is brand new. He just came in from India a couple of months ago, right? And he'll be studying at Eastern Michigan University and continuing to obviously to study so that he can be of help, particularly at St. Louis Center. So welcome. It's good to have you with us. Enjoy the cold weather. He's from South India, by the way. They don't have cold weather. No snow. No. Lots of rain, but no snow. Oh wait, on the east side, you don't get much rain, do you? No. All right. What more appropriate day to be reflecting on this great institution, the Pious Union of St. Joseph, than the last day of the church year? It is the very last day of the church year. The church wraps up its readings normally today with a reading of the book of Revelation, the very end of the book of Revelation, and the very end, toward the very end of St. Luke's Gospel. But being at the end should serve as a reminder to all of us that we should always be prepared for the end. And of course, the whole purpose of the Pious Union of St. Joseph is to pray also for ourselves in anticipation of our own end, but especially for our loved ones who are dying or who have died. I want to present to us, if I may, just in a few words, why St. Joseph is such an apt patron for this, and such an apt patron for all of us as well. Think of all of the wonderful things that St. Joseph said in the Gospels. St. Joseph said nothing in the Gospels. Mary probably thought he was the perfect husband. Of course, I think my dad would wish that my mother had taken after St. Joseph. But not a word. An exercise in silence. And silence ultimately is all that we can bring before God when we are anticipating our own death, or when we are considering or caring for someone we know who is dying. All we can bring to God is our silence, our emptiness. Because it's only in doing that, only when we present that void to God, that we allow ourselves to be filled. If we present ourselves to God as full, as always spouting, there's not much room for God to do anything in us. So Joseph, first of all, becomes the model for us in prayer, in presenting ourselves, preparing ourselves for the end of days, or loving others, as ones who must be prepared to empty ourselves before the Lord, to be silent. A second quality of St. Joseph. We often hear that phrase, in the Gospel, that Joseph considered leaving Mary when he found out that she was pregnant. Now, I presume, it doesn't say anywhere in the Scriptures, but I presume Mary must have told him. And Mary must have told him how this all happened. Joseph was not lacking in faith, so I presume Joseph believed her. The only reason then why Joseph would want to set aside their planned marriage is because Joseph did not consider himself worthy enough to be espoused to Mary, who was to be the mother of God. That's a second quality for us. To recognize none of us is worthy to approach God, ever. No matter what we do. We are all to be like Joseph. To be able to step back. As John the Baptist said, I must decrease, he must increase. Well, Joseph was doing that right at the very beginning. I must decrease. I must back off and let God be God. In my life, in Mary's life, and in the process of the salvation of the world. And yet the third quality comes across in Joseph's life, because in the dream, God tells Joseph, the angel tells Joseph, you are to take Mary as your spouse, you are to name this child. You are to be father to this child. It's interesting, I often think about my dad, who's raised 10 children, that wonder what he thought about halfway through that. Like after Paul was born, I think about it, especially Paul. But to think about that, if he had known back that day when he was walking down the aisle, what it was going to be like, not only 5 down the road, but 10 down the road, I wonder if he would have walked down that aisle. I suppose I could say same thing for Mom, but Mom never regrets anything, so she just keeps moving along. God spares us knowledge of the future. Thanks be to God. Otherwise, none of us would get out of bed in the morning. God spares us knowledge of the future. We make a leap. And so, Joseph is a good model for us. Joseph wanted to back off and was ready to. But God gave him a role to play, and he did it, not knowing where on earth this was going. A fourth quality of Joseph is the fact that what he was given, this role he was given, was a family not his own. I am sure his anticipation had been, Mary and I will have children. But instead, God gave him a family not his own. It's God's will, after all, that's important in our life. Not our will, but God's will. And in essence, I can say that about my dad. He was given a family, in a sense, not his own. Because it was God's family, given to him. These children here do not belong to us. They belong to God. We are but stewards. Sometimes we enjoy being stewards, and sometimes we don't enjoy being stewards. But they belong to God. They are gifts. And so we render them always, every day, back to God. another way for us to prepare for the end in modeling Joseph, imitating Joseph, is that we are always ready and willing to render all back to God. Because that's where it belongs. Finally, the final trait of Joseph is that there is no indication of when or where or how he died. It's a great mystery. He just disappears. He's off the scene. Of course, it's not that remarkable considering the fact that almost 30 years of Jesus' life is off the scene. We don't see what goes on there either. But that's a sign for us too. It's that day in and day out fidelity, that giving of ourselves, that being open to God's will, doing what God wants in our lives. Just being faithful. My sisters and brothers, I think St. Joseph is a perfect model for all of us. All of us to follow both as we keep moving to that day which is ever nearer, which we don't know what it is, when it will be. Maybe it will be December 21st, the end of the Mayan calendar, but I doubt it. Or maybe it will be tonight, or maybe it will be many, many years from now. Joseph is a good model. And because he knows what this is all about, he's the most excellent one to pray for, pray to as well. God bless you all.